Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Schutte,
Here.
Member Dodson, Member Erb, Member Henderson, Member Macquarie, Member Novak,
Here.
ex officio Member Rosenberg.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you so much. Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to move on our agenda to the public comment period. Do I have any general public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of our minutes from August 10th, 2022. We have a noted correction on number 8 for the adjournment time to match the recording time of 4:42. We might as well put 15 seconds since it's there. Do I have any other corrections or anything? See no others, I'll accept a motion to approve as corrected. Mr. McQuarrie?
I'll move to accept the minutes of August the 10th, 2022,
As corrected.
as corrected. Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion and a second for the approval of the minutes of August 10, 2022 as corrected. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion carried unanimously. We're now going to move on to agenda item 5A, which is discussion and presentation on the Nevada Department of Transportation's Highway 50 operational study. I'm guessing that you're ready to go. Thank you. Please introduce yourself for the record and take us through it.
Okay, let me pull my presentation up here. There it goes. Hello, thank you guys for inviting me here today. My name is Laura Wise, and I am a scoping project coordinator. I was the project manager for the US 50 Dayton operational study. Unfortunately, Kevin Berry can't be here tonight. He was supposed to be presenting with me, so I'm going to take it over for today. Okay, so what I want to walk you through today is kind of an overview of the operational study, the recommended vision for the corridor, what projects we have going on for US 50, the One Nevada next steps for this study. So the purpose of our study was to coordinate with the local partners to define all of the needs for this section of US 50 from Pinecone to Ney Roads. We wanted to really dig into the transportation safety and operational issues there. We wanted to partner with Lyon County, Story County, CAMPO, and Carson City to get all the input we could for addressing as many issues as possible on this corridor. So there is a project website. You can find it either by going to NDOT, NDOT's main website and searching US 50 Dayton, or there is the website URL up here as well for you. It has our finished report. It has the public meeting presentation. There's also the results of our public survey. All that is out there for you guys to peruse if you have any other information on it, want more information. So for the operational study itself, we really wanted to look at the existing and projected safety and operations. We wanted to really focus in on the fatalities, the complaints, the problems that we're seeing out in Dayton that have been occurring more frequently. We did reach out to Lyon County and Story County, got all the future developments, so we incorporated what has been approved into the future predictions for the traffic out there for the next 20 to 30 years. Then we took all of that and we went out and we got public input as well. We wanted to make sure that we are not going to suggest something the public's going to hate, hopefully. That's the goal, at least. So we did have a public meeting. We had a public survey that was open. We had the results of those as well. So we looked at 3 main concepts. Our arterial concept, which slow down the speeds, put in stoplights, maintain all the existing access points, allow for more of an urbanized feel to the corridor. Parkway alternative, which was some frontage roads, consolidating the access points, fewer lights, fewer intersection controls, keep the traffic kind of moving as more of an arterial highway type situation. And then we looked also at a controlled access facility, which would be complete freeway, interchanges, frontage roads, very minimal access to US 50, transforming the roadway into that. The study came out with a recommendation of going with the parkway alternative. It would include 6 signalized intersections, high T intersections, frontage road system beginnings for getting vehicles to those centralized locations, slowing down the speed limit to 45 out to 6 Mile, but allowing for faster speeds east of that still. And then the piece of this that was good to develop into a future controlled access facility when the needs are met for that volume of roadway. So it's kind of beginning the frontage road system that could be transformed eventually into more of a controlled access facility. So currently, this parkway recommendation has been put into our One Nevada prioritization process, and I'll explain kind of what that means a little bit later in the presentation. During this, one of our main crash types out there, and it was almost 25% of the crashes, was animal-related crashes. So we had already completed construction on the horse fencing project that goes all the way from SR 341 out to Chavez. That construction is completed at this point. They're just finishing up the last parts of that. So hopefully that will reduce some of those crashes. Those animal-related collisions will be mitigated. So NDOT and Safety and CAMPO have started working on a local road safety plan. NDOT's also reaching out to Lyon County to try and start working with them as well on a local road safety plan to try and get some more safety improvements done. And there's also a future pavement rehabilitation project we just sent to design. So that's going to be repaving the roadway from just east of Fortune all the way out to Chavez. It's programmed for 25-26, years 2025-26. So what that project includes is we were able to incorporate a lot of the recommendations from the operational study into that pavement preservation project. So there will be 2 signalized intersections included, one at Riverboat and Cardelli by the Maverick, one at 6 Mile and Fort Churchill where the school buses cross. We will also be adding the additional lane in each direction, so it'll become a 6-lane facility. But we will be dropping the speed limit to 45 miles an hour through the area where the most fatalities have just been happening through this area. We will be changing access. Occidental East will no longer be able to make a left out, but there is access back road to get to both the Riverboat Cardelli and the 6 Mile lights to make that movement more safe. A lot of the side roads will get turn lanes into them, right turn lanes, acceleration, deceleration lanes, also with this project. As much of the safety improvements as we could fit from the operation study will be happening in this preservation project coming forward. So, as we said earlier, the whole operational study was placed into the One Nevada process. So what does that mean? So the One Nevada process is really the data-driven process to make sure that the projects and NDOT's moving forward align with the core goals of what we're trying to accomplish for the state and give us a way to judge one project over against another based on how we're meeting those core goals and improving the state. So we're looking at things of long-range need that we're going to refine down once they're validated that, yes, these are needs, these are fit the goals of the department, they fit the goals of the state. We're going to define those down into concepts, and we're going to take those concepts and refine them into projects, get them programmed into the STIP, put them in the work program, and make them happen with a good backing of why that we can define to everyone. So how does this fit with the U.S. operational study? So the operational study itself was really the needs. You can kind of think of that as we identified all the needs we could. We came up with recommendations. We got the parkway concept out of it. So now we're partway through more into the concept phase. This is what we have as a concept. When the pavement rehabilitation project came up, we were able to say, oh, this is another need we can establish. What else can we put in? We can take this concept, make it into a project. We couldn't do the entire thing because there's a lot of constraints on that. What is good, though, is it's kind of taken the full chunk, which was too big to do at once, and chopped it into phases. So there's 3 basic phases for the US 50 operational study. We're starting with the part that has the highest pavement need. We're gonna get that done, get those improvements done. The other 2 sections are still competing against the state. They're being refined further. And as funding and availability and additional needs come up, we will move those pieces forward. So that's kind of how we're sitting right now. The one part of it's made it through into the project, and there's 2 other pieces that are still competing and waiting to come through. And so that's where we are with the Dayton operational study at this point. Do you guys have any questions or?
Yeah. Thank you for improving upon our 4-lane widening that we did once upon a time. I guess general question is, it sounds like you got some frontage roads coming good, and you've discussed with future development in the area. Are there any other parallel local roads that are going to be built? Because it's like a statewide issue that traffic gets dumped on the state highway and NDOT has to clean it up. So through this process, is there some encouragement that other roads might get built so traffic does not have to get on this road?
I'd say there's definitely encouragement, and we are working, particularly with Lyon County, we're gonna have to with this next project to get these roads built. It's part of the local road safety plan. I know that they want to get going is to enforce the importance of access management, of keeping these accesses spaced properly, of getting people to use the proper roads. NDOT, I'm not aware of any other NDOT projects, I'd say there isn't any, that will actually make any of the other roads in Dayton any different, but that is something that I know we are very interested in, and we've been talking to, reaching out to Lyon County about trying to get the backflow improved for this.
All righty. And then, Sandra, I guess related to this, you've done this corridor study. There's one up at Tahoe on 50 and Mount Rose. Are there any others in the area, Campo, or nearby?
Yes, there's a few. We are working with CAMPO for a US 50 corridor study closer to Carson, and I think Chris mentioned that last month or 2 months ago. We're actually providing some funding, and CAMPO is going to be doing that study to line up with the East William Street study that was done recently. So there's that one. That's the one that's most probably directly affecting CAMPO. In addition, the nearby ones, we have a very old, outdated 395. We called it the 395 Southern Sierra Corridor Study. We do plan on updating that corridor study starting sometime in the next federal fiscal year. It's in our next SPR program. We are currently hope to wrap up this year, not in this area, but adjacent areas that may be of concern. US 50 Lake Tahoe Corridor Management Plan should be wrapping up later this year. We're looking at safety improvements on US 50 at the lake. And then we recently wrapped up Mount Rose Corridor Study. We're going to be working, and we're in the process of working on a McCarran Corridor Study as well. So it's a little further away, but yeah, we're doing a number of corridor studies, either led by NDOT or coordinating with the MPOs in the region.
Do you have any other questions or comments? Mr. Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for being here. I know you were out at the meeting we had at the Calvary Church out in Dayton
Yes, I will.
a few months ago. When we packed it, we had to have the meeting in the church because there's only a building big enough in Dayton. That's how much interest is in this out there. So you talked about 2 additional signalized intersections. Do you have any idea of a time frame of that?
So the project is scheduled for fiscal year 25 or 26.
And we can't wait.
Depending on that. That's what I can tell you for sure right now. I mean, there's definitely, I know there's interest in that. And there's
Yeah, because,
I can't fix it, unfortunately. I wish I could, but that's what we can do. I know that the only thing we can really do to speed this up is to really get a lot of more coordination going with Lyon County, with Dayton, getting that support. Because we need to get right of way, and we're going to need to improve the Lyon County portions of those streets. So having that cooperation and coordination, I know that this project is just, we're hired a consultant to help try and expedite it. We're trying to get it moving as fast as we can.
yeah, because I mean, 2025 is not going to work for those lights. And we also have a developer out there who is willing to pay for and install a traffic signal at Traditions. And the county commission has approved a letter to be sent to NDOT supporting that. Have you heard anything about that?
Actually, I have heard stuff about that. It's not with this, but I had a meeting about it on Monday, actually, about reviewing, getting a team together to review the proposal and to see how that would fit and if that's something we could do. So it is moving. It's just, we have to evaluate it, look at their traffic study, look at how it would fit in with the corridor.
We study a lot. We need to act,
We do study a lot, and
yes.
Let me just add that, it seems like a long way off. There's a lot of work that has to occur in order to build a project. We can't just put up signal poles. There is, as Laura mentioned, there's right of way, there's utilities. So I think we can look, and we reprioritize our program every single year, although I will say that one of the biggest driving factors is readiness. So if the county continues to work with us, as it sounds like they are, in terms of helping us get that right away in the utilities, there's a potential to move it up, I think, with that reprioritization each year.
Because just, I appreciate you being here, but Lyon County is going to be very vocal about this from now on. So be prepared. And, it will not be with just you guys, with the governor's office, with the legislature, with our delegation, whoever will listen, we are going to make noise. Because we need something done sooner rather than later.
and that's the best way to expedite it, honestly, is you need to be involved and make noise and see, and we will try and support as best we can. So,
And that's why I appreciate it being on this agenda today, because, CAMPO is another entity that can help us make noise. So, thank you, and that's all.
Okay. Mr. Novak, you
Yep,
have another comment?
additional follow-up. If the signals go in, will Carson City be asked to maintain them?
Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. I'll put on my Carson City hat in this particular instance. It's likely that if we take a look at our agreement with Lyon County, and if it's signal specific, we would probably amend that. If otherwise, it would be broad basing, and we'd adjust as needed based on new signals that are constructed.
Okay. And then for Lyon County, is there some flood control work being considered in this corridor as well?
Yes, we have approved a stormwater system. Now we just need about $80 million to install it. That and the second bridge, which is, the county commission has selected the location for the second bridge, which is at Chavs Road. But again, now that we have a location, we still need funding. And we don't just need a bridge, we need the bridge and a road network to connect it to other roads out there. So, and that's another thing we're going to be making a lot of noise, not necessarily with NDOT, but with the congressional delegation, to see if we can't get some funding for that, because that is a safety issue. We have, a lot of construction on the south side of the river. Construction is going to continue, growth is not going to stop, and we have one way in, one way out.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else on the commission? Do I have any public comment on this item? No? Okay. Well, thank you so very much for the presentation, and we wish everyone good luck on getting this project moving along as quickly as possible.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. You did fine for a single presentation. Okay. We're now going to move on to agenda item 5B, which is for possible action regarding CAMPO's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. And Alex, I see him just coming up. Good afternoon. You want to give us a briefing on this?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Alex Cruz, Transit Coordinator. So the Federal Transit Administration requires all recipients of grant funding to keep a 3-year program goal with regards to participation by disadvantaged business enterprises on their projects. CAMPO is due to update their program goal for fiscal years 2023 through 2025. And staff has come up with a goal of 1.43%, up from 0.72% in fiscal years 2020 through 2022. The methodology for how the percentage was chosen can be found on beginning on packet page 25, but I'll kind of go through a quick example. If we take the percentage of the NAICS code 236220, found on table 1 under transit facility upgrades, that percentage is 25.58%. And we multiply it by the DBE percent of 1.92%, that's found on table 2 for the same NAICS code, we end up with a weighted percentage of 0.48. We then add all of our weighted percentages from our table together, and that is where we get our goal. Staff set the increased goal due to the types of anticipated projects that will include FTA funding during that period and the number of DBEs that we have that could possibly participate in those projects. Staff had a 30-day public notice period and also held a public meeting where no comments were received. So should the CAMPO board approve this document and the associated goal, staff will next submit the DBE goal and methodology plan to the FTA for review and approval. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
So, Mr. Cruz, did we make the last 3 years goal?
So we are not quite done yet. It does run through the rest of this year. We've been very, very close. So at 0.72%, we basically run it per year. We submit semi-annually, so twice a year since 2020 we've been submitting. And we've been at like 0.65 and a couple times we're at 0.8. So we're averaging right around 0.72.
And again, you feel comfortable. I know there's no disadvantage to not making it, but you still like to set your goals that are reasonable to obtain. And so you're convinced based on the types of projects that are in our plans that we have sufficient vendors to meet the goal. Doesn't mean they'll bid, but we have current bidders on the lists that would meet that.
Yeah, I think with the types of projects, I mean, this next coming 3 years, we do have some construction type projects, and that's where a lot more of a concentration of DBEs are. So we have a lot better chance of getting more participation, more money that they put in, and then so hopefully that goal is a little bit more achievable. In the past, when we didn't have as many of those construction type projects, so that it's a little bit harder when you have like software contracts. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? No? Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, with that, I'll accept a motion then. Go ahead, Mr. Dotson.
I move to submit CAMPO's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program with a participation goal of 1.43% for federal fiscal years 2023 through 25 to the FTA.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for the approval to submit CAMPO's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program with a participation goal of 1.43%. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Okay, we're now going to move to agenda item 5C, which is presentation on our CAMPO activities that we've had this last state fiscal year, not federal fiscal year. State fiscal year. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. So as in the past, following the completion of each fiscal year, it's been common practice for the Transportation Manager to provide a short summary of the prior fiscal year, in this case, fiscal year 22's activities related to what staff have been working on. And a lot of the information I wanted to highlight is included in the staff report, in the attachment or Exhibit 1 for the Unified Planning Work Program Summary. But I think I wanted to highlight a few items. Specifically, I think as many of us have experienced, this past year has been one of change, one related to COVID-19, one related to staffing internally, one related to federal legislation and learning all the requirements of those new programs. And so I think all of us here at CAMPO and the staff behind me have really been working hard to adapt and learn and grow and understand all those provisions. And so I wanted to acknowledge them really quickly there. You know, we were successful in completing many of the tasks, in fact, all but one of the tasks outlined in the last 2-year UPWP, specifically in fiscal year 22. and they were all completed within budget. And this success is in large part to I mentioned, to our staff. So compared to our partner MPOs, CAMPO receives some of the smallest total federal share of the other 3 MPOs in the state. And so we have many of the same requirements. And so we're juggling a lot of hats here at CAMPO. And so we're trying to meet the expectations of the board and the public as well, and doing what we can to achieve our goals. So I appreciate the input we received from all the board members through all the different agenda items, because you keep us focused on what we need to do. So I appreciate that. I also wanted to acknowledge the CAMPO member agencies, Douglas County and Lyon County specifically, for being here. I appreciate that too. I think the first time that I've been a member of Carson City or CAMPO, where all 7 members were here in person. So it's really wonderful to have that here. And then the last thing I want to mention is I wanted to just acknowledge again prior CAMPO staff members, Lucia Maloney and Dirk Goring, for setting up this organization so that we all can keep us moving forward. So I'm happy to take any questions, but that was what I wanted to cover for CAMPO. I have a few other items in the Transportation Manager's report, but I just wanted to highlight those right now.
Do I have any questions or comments? No, I'll just say on the surface, it's been a great year. It's really a good exercise, I think, truly for every board, commission, anybody that serves in an organization, to look back over your year and say, did we make it? Where did we do well? Where didn't we hit the mark? What can we do better to achieve it? Why? Was it systemic, or was it an error in policy? So I really appreciate you taking the time to really look back and see. It's kind of like having a strategic goal, but if you never dust it off and look at it, then why'd you bother, right? Why'd we bother? So I really appreciate the staff's hard work, and I look forward to, we're just going to have another great year. So thank you. No comments from anyone else? Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to 6A. You're sitting right there. You might as well go for it.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to highlight a number of items this month. Yesterday, I attended the latest version of the NDOT Sustainable Advisory Working Group, the Sustainable Funding Working Group. Sandra was in remote up in Northern Nevada. I was down in Las Vegas. A number of items were discussed yesterday. I thought it was a good meeting. We discussed many of the revenue mechanisms and took votes on specific, high-level recommendations. Now I think the hard part's going to begin is compiling the report, and then kind of developing, I don't want to say wordsmithing, but developing the actual formal recommendations that'll be made to the legislature. Sandra, I don't know if, and maybe when you get a chance, if you wanted to provide an update more specific. I thought it was a good meeting. There was a lot of good discussion, and I was happy with that we made actually some progress and took some votes yesterday. So that was good. Regarding other items for coming up next month, we're going to be bringing an STBG non-monetary agreement to this board. This is a new STBG agreement for funding with NDOT. So it'll be a 5-year agreement for the new infrastructure bill funding. Approximately, CAMPO's set to receive approximately $1.3-ish million in this current federal fiscal year 22. And then there's different apportionments for each of the following federal fiscal years. And so we want to be working with the partner agencies on how we can use some of that STBG money. In the past, we'd had some distribution formulas internally between the agencies. So our plan is to sit down with Lyon County, Carson City, and Douglas County to figure out the best way to use that money and find an equal participation through the different fiscal years going forward. So look for that next month, as well as some high-level summary of how we plan to kind of distribute that going forward. Next month, we also plan to bring another JAC item. The Transit Asset Management Plan, or the TAM plan, is due for update. So we'll be bringing that in October. That sort of outlines our transit assets, such as our vehicle fleet, as well as our bus stops and bus facilities, maintenance facilities. So we'll bringing an update on that. That's another 3-year, 4-year. I think it's a 4-year plan, and it's due. Just so happened that DBE, Title VI, and TAM are all due the same year. So we'll have that next month. Anticipate that. Laura mentioned the local road safety plan. We've been working back and forth with NDOT regarding an agreement, so anticipate that next month as well. I was speaking with their safety, chief of safety, Lacey. She's indicated that we're pretty close on that, so I hope to bring that to the board as well, and we'll have more detail on what that is at the next meeting. We're also working diligently. Kelly's leading the effort on our annual monitoring report, pulling together a lot of the new census information. The census tracts in Carson City have changed following the 2020 census, so we're reviewing the data and seeing how that may or may not change the way we report. So we're taking a look at that information. We're also starting the process to update our Transportation Improvement Plan, or TIP. This includes, since NDOT's adopted theirs, we're looking at updating ours through federal fiscal year 26. And this includes robust participation with all of the federal agencies, local agencies, and NDOT to understand which projects we want to move forward with, which ones we want to prioritize. And so we're starting to identify those projects. We're starting to develop a process to prioritize those projects from our RTP, from other updates than our member agencies, so we can use that going forward on anticipated spending of federal and regionally significant projects. So look for that in the coming months. That's not a next month item. That's a little bit bigger effort going forward. And on the longer term horizon, probably at some point want to start discussing transportation electrification. There are a number of state and federal programs and funding opportunities for transit and other personal electric vehicles. So an update to this board is needed at some point. We're not ready to do that, but something to start thinking about and putting on your radar is what do we want our electrification system here in Carson City to be? What do we want transit to be? Maybe some of that can happen at the transit asset management discussion. So that's what I have on the Transportation Manager's report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
City member have a question? Mr. McQuarrie?
I just have a comment, and as you know, I've been trying to get the city to buy an electric vehicle for a while, and I'm very pleased to hear what you just said. Thanks.
Chris, related to that, as long as we're here in this bigger group, we might as well consider electric bicycles as well. I don't know if we have any funding for it or whatever, but make sure that that's part of the overall picture.
We'll keep it on the list.
All right.
Thank you.
I can't decide, was that tongue in cheek? You want us to buy electric vehicle? Oh, I thought you were saying, when he said the fleet, I thought, what? You want to get electric bikes, sorry. That one just went right over the top of my head. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Then we'll move on to final public comment. Is there any final public comment? No? Okay, well then we are adjourned at 5:00-ish, 5:02 from the CAMPO. Thank you all so much, and we'll just come back at just a couple of minutes. We'll become RTC. And again, thank you to those members from our outline. Thank you so much for coming and doing this in person, Wes and John. We really appreciate that. It's nice. Coming and doing this in person, Wes. call the RTC Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Schudy,
Here.
Commissioner Dodson, Commissioner McQuarrie, Commissioner Novak.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to agenda item number 3, which is our first public comment. Do I have any public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on then to agenda item 4, which is for action, approval of our minutes of August 10th, 2022. Do I have any corrections? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for approval. Mr. Novak?
I move to accept the minutes of the August 10th meeting.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We're now on to agenda item number 5A, which is for possible action and discussion on a contract with Translock Inc. to provide equipment, software, and services needed to equip our Jump Around Carson Jack Assist Parrot Transit buses with computer-aided dispatch, automatic vehicle location, passenger counting, and Wi-Fi for an initial 3-year term for $76,368, and then an automatic renewal for year over year unless terminated. Do you have any, just a brief? I think we're pretty well versed on this one, but go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so during the August RTC meeting, staff brought forward an item for a contract with Transloc regarding our fixed route CAT AVL services. So this item is for a contract with Transloc regarding our paratransit service, which requires some differences from that fixed route contract. The total contract, like she was stated, was $76,368 for 3 years, and it's structured similarly to that previous fixed route contract. Similar one-year extensions are available, and a maximum of 3% increases possible but not required on the contract as well. So other than that, yeah, I'm available for any questions.
Does anybody have a question? Thank you for making the same stuff that we did on the last one. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for approval. Mr. Dotson? Oh, sorry.
I move to award the contract as presented to make the not-to-exceed amount on this contract $76,368, and to authorize the transportation manager to permit up to 2 one-year options to extend the contract beyond the initial 3-year term.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. The record reflect the motion was unanimous. Okay, we're now move on to agenda item 5B, which is discussion and possible action regarding a proposed fixed route rider policies and procedure for Jump Around Carson. And, oh, thank you. You gotta, we leave them, we feel like we have notes as regular members on the board. They always leave us a stack right in front of our, here's all your late material. Yours isn't as thick, so you're not doing bad. You're not doing bad. Okay. So let the record reflect then, we're speaking based on this version, the late material. And there is one for the public that is on the back table. Good, okay, then we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in April of 2021, the RTC Board approved an amended Jack Assist policies and procedures document. After that meeting, staff realized that a similar fixed route policy document was needed, as all of our current policies are just referenced as frequently asked questions right now on the ridejack.com website. Staff looked at various transit agencies for guidance regarding their policy and put together a document that can now be distributed to both riders and staff as a single source for any questions regarding rider policy. Staff included the recent fare and amenity changes within the document and will produce both a regular policy document and a printer-friendly version that can be distributed to riders. If the RTC board would like to see, I have a small rider-friendly version that we'll be able to distribute to the people. The policy will not be distributed until our Jack fares return, so we'll hold off on that. With that, if you have any questions, I'm available.
Great job on the edits. Thank you very much. I think they're much cleaner. Do I have any other questions, edits, suggestions?
Yeah,
Chaz?
Alex, I think I read in here somewhere that dogs other than service dogs or animals are not allowed on Jack. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So well, I guess that makes sense. I mean, maybe a safety issue perhaps. I don't know exactly the thinking behind that.
That's correct. It's just difficult to have, riders bringing on pets, and then, because it can get a little iffy. But we're also, I don't believe we're required to ask whether it's a service dog or any of that as well, so.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Do I have any public comment on this item? With that, I'll accept a motion for approval of the policy handed out as late material.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the Jack fixed route rider policies and procedures as presented, effective on the date Jack's new fare schedule goes into effect.
And the presented, again, for the record, is the late material. Is there a
Yes.
second?
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that it was approved unanimously. Again, thank you, Alex, and all of you for your hard work on that. We're now going to move to agenda item 5C, which is discussion and possible action on an amendment to our cooperative agreement with Nevada Department of Transportation to increase the agreement for our Safe Routes to School master plan to include the Douglas County into this agreement. I have a disclosure. Ms. Schutte, please.
Thank you. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, take us through this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. This item is relatively straightforward to increase the funding in our Western Nevada Safe Routes to School Transportation Alternatives Program. This is like I just said, Transportation Alternatives Program funding. Additional funding was available through NDOT, and we're using that to support the development of a Douglas County Safe Routes to School master plan, as the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program covers Carson City, Douglas County, Lyon County, and Story County. So this is the next step, building on the success of the Carson City one. In order to support the 5% match associated with that, we are working with Douglas County and on an interlocal agreement for their essentially portion of the 5% in that county. So looking forward to doing that. Happy to take any questions.
Does any member have a question? Comment? Mr. McQuarrie?
Yeah, Chris, so just for my education here, so this, the big umbrella for Safe Routes to School program is all the counties in CAMPO. So why is this not a CAMPO item rather than an RTC item?
Yeah, it's not specifically a CAMPO program. So it is the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School is a bigger umbrella, a bigger blanket than CAMPO. So for instance, we will cover, and we have gone up to Story County. We've purchased a number of safe crossing guard equipment out in Fernley for the high school and for some of the schools out there. I think Scott and Kelly have gone out to Urington and other places as well. So Carson City has taken the leadership on the Safe Routes to School program. And so as a result, the agreement is with the Carson City Regional Transportation Commission acting as the Safe Routes to School program manager, if you will.
Any other questions? Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? If not, I'll accept a motion for approval.
I move to approve Amendment 1 as presented and to authorize the transportation manager to sign the amendment as well as future amendments to the agreement that extend the time for performance or approved funding changes not exceeding 10% of the amended agreement amount.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much. We're now going to move on to agenda item 5D, which is discussion and possible action regarding our community development block grant application. Public Works is seeking $350,000 for sidewalk, American with Disabilities Act, and other improvements along Carmine and the intersections between North Lampa and East Airport Road. So you're going to take us through that one. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam
Brian.
Chair. Brian Byrne, Transportation Engineer. As you just mentioned, this is seeking approval for a CDBG application for this fiscal year. The project is limited for Carmine Street between Airport Road and North Lampa Lanes, and that consists of numerous sidewalk gaps, portions of unpaved shoulders, and insufficient ADA compliant crossings. In addition, the corridor connects residents to a nearby elementary school, the Boys and Girls Club, and multiple Jack transit stops. Therefore, this corridor is a good candidate for a CDBG project, and it would provide a safer facility for all multimodal users. And so this application requires no local match, and additional funding sources to supplement and potentially extend the project limits are being assessed. I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like any more detail on Carmine Street. And then in the attached exhibit outlines the project limits.
So just in general, I know that, I guess where this project is, it really wouldn't impact it, but I know that Carmine has a really tough time during storm events. It really has some low spots closer to the airport road side than the Lampa Street side. So I'm just wondering, is there, and the other beauty of CDBG is it doesn't require you to have the match, but it also can be used as match. So I'm just wondering, is there more project that can be accomplished on Carmine? Or are we using one of our other funding to deal with those low spots that are?
Yeah,
It
that's
floods out really bad to the residents that are out there.
no, definitely. And this CBG application would address certain drainage improvements with curb and gutter and sidewalk and evaluating that storm drain side of things. Also, in addition, Carmine Street has prioritized pretty high on our District 1 projects, so that could complement very well with this CDBG grant to kind of improve the infrastructure along that corridor.
Okay, I really just want to stress that if we're gonna be here doing a project, we should look to concentrate any other funding we have to just go ahead and get that
Get it all done,
street.
yeah.
Because, and I want to mention whoever works in your arena also, I think it's at Dory and Carmine. If someone can take a look, I think while I recognize the trees are on private property, I think we've got real bad view
Yep.
blockage going there. And so whatever we can do to help trim some trees or do something there, but you have to literally come out into the intersection to be able to see oncoming traffic. So while we're
Definitely.
on Carmine Street, so I'll disclose, I grew up on Sherman, a block away, but, so I know this area well and the flooding and everything, so just want to put that out there that if we're going to be there, let's really work to fix the section, because I'm very proud of Carson City for that trying to cut once mentality also, right? If you're going to do something, you don't want to come back 2 years later and hit it again. So anybody else, any other comments? Do I have any public comment on this item? No? Okay, I'll accept a motion. Greg?
I move to approve the submission of the grant application as presented.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're now going to move on to agenda item 5E, discussion and presentation for your fiscal year 22 transportation activities. Mr. Martinovich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. Like the CAMPO Board, wanted to give a little summary of the closing of the past fiscal year, which ended June 30th. Most of the background and the extensive summary is in the staff report, but I want to take just a quick moment to highlight a few elements. First of all, our staffing, the Transportation Division is made up of 7 full-time employees, most of which are here tonight, so I appreciate that. And, you know, all of us in some form are supported by grants, whether they're federal grants through CAMPO or the FTA or the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program. We do have one additional staff than we had last year, and that's our grants analyst, and Rebecca's back there. I wanted to acknowledge Rebecca for her work. Having a grants analyst as part of not only Carson City, but CAMPO has really made our reporting for federal grants easier. We're able to get invoices out so we can get reimbursement on the grants quicker than we were previously, and so it's been a real asset to have that position in place to support the team. Regarding funding and grants, I want to call your attention to the table in the staff report, the fiscal 27 to 22 secured competitive discretionary grant funding table. This is updated from last year. So in essence, what we're showing here is we've used $8.6 million in local money, whether that's fuel taxes or RAC funding or other sales taxes from the V&T to leverage, $41 million for a total project amount of just over $50 million in projects, federally supported projects. So approximately 17% match rate on that when you look at all the different sources and funds that go into that. That's speaking of federal grants, we're always looking for new opportunities. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act has a number of new programs, and so we're looking to continually review and strategically plan for those types of grant opportunities. Tomorrow we'll be submitting our Safe Streets for All grant to the US DOT for the Fairview and Empire Elementary Safe Routes to School implementation grant, so we'll get that in tomorrow morning. Tonight we discussed CDBG, so there's 2 more potential federal elements that we could add to this, hopefully next year. Attached also in the staff report, or to the staff report in Exhibit 1, is a map of transportation projects that were underway or in some form in fiscal year 22. This includes all those projects that were in your project status report. I think there are a total of 19 or so projects on there that we've completed in the last year, of varying types all across the city, multimodal, roadway reconstruction, signal projects, all of those. We do all of that across the city. Another element in the staff report is the Carson City pavement report card. I discussed this at CAMPO earlier in the spring. This is based on the latest survey that was completed late last year in 2021 and finalized in 2022. As you can see, citywide, as we've mentioned before, the pavement condition on the roads regional are increasing, local roads are decreasing, and on average, citywide, we're seeing a slight decrease. And again, that goes to those federal dollars where they're able to be spent on regional roads such as Carson Street and Kings Canyon, and now eventually Williams Street as well, where we can make those pavement improvements. We'll be looking at more in the coming months regarding local road safety, or not local road safety, but local road pavement strategies to be able to fund that. Probably, I'm going to say November to be safe. If we can get it to October, great, but I'm going to target November for additional robust discussion on that. We do plan to bring forward and roll out some public outreach materials in regards to that as well. Lastly, I want to highlight in the summary is packet page, packet page 78 is the in-house traffic engineering studies we've been able to accomplish in-house with the transportation traffic engineer. We did 1 speed study and 5 stop warrant studies across the past fiscal year, and the results are indicated there. And that was really what I wanted to highlight. I think, as I mentioned during CAMPO, our staff do a lot, and I appreciate the input that we all receive from all of you for all these meetings. Working back and forth, whether it's at the meeting or prior to the meeting, does help us prepare and guide. So appreciate that and happy to take questions.
So it's not on here, and I think it was last year, but we also successfully did quite a bit of work in the school zones. And I think that, remember, well, the Board of Supervisors actually put some funding into that just to help those zones. And I've got to tell you, I've gotten nothing but compliments. It made a big difference, especially like that Winnie Lane area. I don't know about anybody else, but we were getting a ton of complaints about it being on all day and that the zone was too large and on and on and on and on. But just got to really throw out some kudos to both the Board of Supervisors and staff. But I think a major accomplishment was doing that improvement for the school zones. And then I have a question in the traffic engineering studies. You list the ones here that you do. So if you've had a stop warrant, and it equals no, no stop sign is suggested, recommended, how long before you be willing to do that study again? The area that I continue to get phone calls on is out in the Schultz Ranch Center. You too? Yeah.
have, but it's in Douglas County, that particular.
But again, we're doing the warrant and then would be having them, if it's suggested, put the stop sign in, because we're gonna staff that. So I know we did it, gosh, the time goes by so fast, you
Well, it's-
guys. 3 years ago, 4
No,
years
it's funny
ago?
you mentioned that. This morning I watched last year's, this report last year at the September RTC meeting, and this particular intersection came up. And I remember the response that I gave was, we did complete a stop warrant. I should say, the development completed a stop warrant analysis, Schultz Ranch, for that intersection. The results of that stop warrant necessitated the installation of a stop sign, and the report was stamped and said, please install a stop sign.
Right.
That report was forwarded on to Douglas County, and I do not know the status of that report and the implementation of that.
That's-
So as far as we're concerned, as Carson City RTC, that intersection warrants a stop sign. Unfortunately, we're not able to implement that. We could certainly forward it again.
Let's try it a little bit different potentially. Did you want to have me sign it as the chair?
If
To
we
send
would-
a letter?
if
Because
we'd like
let's
to
send it to
do-
their board
would like to
instead
send a
of
letter,
their,
yeah.
I'm gonna guess you sent it to their engineering team?
Correct.
So why don't we look, this isn't an action item, but why don't we look offline to sending it in a different methodology? And
can-
maybe even from the Board of Supervisors, because we're getting, the problem with Schultz Ranch is part of the roads are in the Douglas County arena, but the houses are in our jurisdiction. So it makes it very difficult for us to be able to be responsive to the citizens in that area. And so let's look at another way to do that. Thank you.
Happy to
Okay.
support.
Anybody else?
Yep.
Mr. Novak?
Yep. I suggested a two-way stop be changed to a four-way stop down there, because, and, one of the things that you did not mention, Chris, is I think RTC staff, Public Works staff in general, has been doing a good job giving input on new development through the Planning Commission and other reviews. It doesn't show up necessarily as RTC, but that's a critical piece of the overall puzzle.
Engineering.
Yeah, the engineering aspects, especially on the safety end. We want to prevent crashes from happening in the first place rather than react to them afterwards. So your early input on all the developments are coming, and there's quite a few, really does make a difference. Thank you for that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, I would just
Great.
want to say thank you to the RTC staff. I think you've done a good job, and I appreciate that over the last year, all of you.
Okay. Again, thank you so very much. Okay, we'll move on. I did public comment, didn't have any. That's okay. No public comment. Give them lots of chances. Don't really actually have any today either, but that's okay. It's worth trying, right? Could mean we're doing such a great job, or staff is, right? Okay, we're gonna move on then to agenda item 6, which is our non-action items. And that was a discussion only also, just so you know. But anyway, do we have your manager's report, please?
Yeah, I'll keep this one brief. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. Next month, we have a couple of items coming to the board. We do have, as mentioned, an interlocal agreement with Douglas County for the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program. So look for that next month. And I think our big item of discussion will be an update on the William Street Complete Streets project. We have reached 30% design. And so the engineering team and the project manager will be rolling out that design to you all for review and input and comment. So look for that in October as well. So long-term, hopefully next month, but I'm not going to guarantee this one either. An update on the Downtown Transit Center. We're working with the federal government on if their roles and what they want to do and how we can coordinate with them regarding that federal building and the location of the transit center. So when we can get some clearer answers on that, we'll certainly bring that back for an update on that, the transit center study. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to street operations activity for July 2022.
Thanks. I want to highlight one thing that was noted as an error by the street operations team. The item near the top, tree care chemical treatment gallons, 2,120. That should have been under the weed abatement chemical sprayed. They accidentally split it out. So we didn't do any tree care chemicals during that first month of fiscal 23, June, or July, I should say. So just wanted to make that change there. And if anyone had any other questions, let me know.
Just in general, it's back and forth between what Parks and Rec does and what your team does. Can you clarify who does the work on College Parkway in the medians there? Who has that actual responsibility?
I will have to check on that because I'm not sure those particular
Okay.
medians who
Of
has that responsibility.
Which ones are which?
Yep.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Does anybody else?
Madam
Mr.
Chair, just to
McQuarrie?
follow up on that, since I drive on College Parkway, or actually I ride my bicycle on College Parkway, and I believe it is Parks that I've seen their trucks out there doing that, but the trees are overhanging the bike lane on the north side to the extent that it doesn't affect vehicular traffic, but if you're riding a bicycle, you're forced out into the travel lane sometimes. So Chris, if you could coordinate with Parks, that would be great.
Well, I'd like to see who has what responsibility there and then see what we can do.
We'll take
I
a
think-
stepwise approach.
I think
yeah.
College Parkway needs a little more help than the trees. Need some help there, so thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Then we'll go to 6C, please. Hi, Brian.
Thank you. I'll update for the project status report. First on the list is the freeway multi-use path to Edmond Sports Complex. I think we're all excited to finally see that in August, Carson City obtained the easements from BLM to allow for multi-use path within the BLM property. So the project, 100% design plans and bid documents will be submitted to NDOT later this month, and construction is anticipated to start in 2023.
Yeah, that's a big yippee. Yeah,
Yes.
that's huge.
Kings Canyon Trailhead improvements. The construction is complete, and the team is working to close out the grant, and the final numbers will be presented at the next report. Roop Street Rehabilitation Project. This project is anticipated to bid this fall. This was to allow for more competitive bids. No new update really there. District 2 Long Street project. This project is complete and is working on finalizing the closeout process. Robinson Area Sewer Replacement Project. The contractor has completed all the major construction items. Completion of minor construction items will continue into September with substantial completion occurring this month. So that should be wrapping up here very shortly.
Oh, can I ask you on the Long Street project, sorry?
Yeah.
So the project cost to date was 2.7 million at a 3.2. Are we holding a final invoice or are we expecting to actually be ahead of the game on this one?
That's what we're trying to finalize is those final invoices coming through. So we should have those final numbers coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be nice to be ahead. We're gonna need it somehow, I think. Okay.
All right, the Colorado Street CDBG pavement project. The design has been completed and NDOT has issued the notice to proceed. We're looking to rebid that next month. Center Drive reconstruction project. This project is completed and is working on the closeout process.
I'll note that that is the final number, to my knowledge.
I was just gonna say, because it says you're gonna remove it, so
Yep.
I just want to say, please don't remove them without us having a final number.
Yep.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Oh, we saved a little there.
The Fifth Street reconstruction project. So the right turn lane project at Carson River Road is complete. The project is at a 30% design for the roundabout, and other portions of the project is ongoing. Staff's work on developing a noise study that is to be completed prior to the final design of the project, expected July 2023.
Brian, what's the critical issue for a noise study on
I
this
was
one?
like, what?
So we had a meeting with NDOT to review the requirements and guidance on if a noise study is warranted. And based on the vertical and horizontal geometry changes of this project, it kind of triggered for there to be a noise study. However, in the last week or so, we were having discussions to appeal for relief of that noise study. So hopefully, we're working on finalizing that right now to see if that's going to be approved.
Because I had more of a concern about noise walls along the freeway, but this little, it's like, I don't really know what's changing that much, so.
Yeah,
Well, and I
thanks.
guess we didn't do a noise study when we put the roundabout in there in the first place. This is just to expand it. We're gonna expand the roundabout here, but we didn't do a noise study the first time.
I'm Chris Martinovich. I'm not an expert in noise study analysis. My understanding is when it comes to the need to do noise studies is they look at a number of components, including if additional lanes are being added such that the footprint of the road is becoming wider than it was currently. So in this case, when we're talking about widening and expanding the roundabout to a multi-lane roundabout, we're adding lanes at the roundabout, which sort of triggers that need to at least, do we need to do a noise study? So given that potential expansion of footprint of roadway, it's triggering those National Environmental Policy Act type requirements. But as Brian mentioned, recently, the Federal Highway Administration has said, well, you know, there's really nobody near this roundabout. There's no residents, there's no noise-sensitive receptors. So maybe if we can work together, we can find a possible mitigation or alleviate the requirement to do a noise study. So that's what we're working with now. We're working with the Federal Highway Administration to appeal that need and get out of the noise study in essence.
Yeah, because it wasn't for increased traffic volume, it was for better flow of traffic and safety for that area, to be able to have enough laneage to get the people out during a school emergency versus doubling the traffic. I mean, it was for a different reason.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to mention that in case you're having to write more issues to get us out of a noise one there. Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, I think we're on Curry Street pavement preservation. That project is achieved substantial completion and finalizing the punch list items.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I've asked this before, but I always forget the answer. So what is the plan for the bit that wasn't in part of this pavement rehabilitation, the bit round the hillside there? Is that in any of our plans to improve that bit, to widen it? Because that's sort of the bottleneck, especially if you're on a bicycle.
Yeah. I think I'll let Chris answer this with the history on it.
Thanks, Jazz, for the question. That project is listed in the Regional Transportation Plan as a regionally significant project. There are a number of challenges, as you noted, with that particular location, one of which is right-of-way. There are some challenges with who owns certain portions of that and how wide the city owns versus how much the state or the federal government owns with the Forest Service. So there's a little bit more involved with that particular project. We do plan to move forward with that as our next round of district projects in, I think, 2027 through coordination with a variety of agencies, including the Forest Service. And so that's sort of why it was pulled out of the Curry Street project, is we recognize that it needs more, and we want to make sure we take the time to work with the partners and figure out all the constraints and limitations and challenges with that spot.
Yes, and given the time that it typically takes to work through those agreements and those negotiations, I would just urge an early start on that so that we can have something done as soon as it's practical.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Next is both the Solomon Road and Silver Sage pavement preservation projects. Both of those have achieved substantial completion, and we are finalizing the punch list items. East William Street the East William Complete Street Project. As mentioned earlier, the consultant has submitted 30% design plans to Carson City for review. The environmental studies are in progress for the development of the NEPA documents. We will be presenting a little more on this next month. The DMV multi-use path project. The multi-use path design has begun with a 30% design submittal expected to be submitted to NDOT next month. The project 100% design is expected to be completed in the spring of 2023, with construction outlined for spring or summer of 2024. Last is the Appian Way Traffic Signal and Intersection Improvement Project. The project is currently under review for the 50% design submittal. The consultant is coordinating with NDOT and continuing the subsurface utility investigation. Design is expected to be completed by the end of the calendar year. With that,
On that one, is the budget on this one only the design? Didn't we get,
The budget on this project shown right now is only the design.
is only design? Okay, I was gonna say, because I thought we got other money. Okay. And we spent a big $740. We're moving right along. I just haven't like, Chess.
Brian, if you could go back to the DMV multi-use path project. Will the 30% design be brought before the RTC board? Will we get a chance to look at that? Or I guess that would be a request on my part. If you don't bring it back to the whole board, then I'd be interested in just seeing what you come up with 30%.
If that is something you would like to see, we can do that. We typically don't bring our designs to the RTC board. So I would err toward continuing that status.
That's fine, but I would like to see the 30% if I could. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else? Oh, Mr. Dodson?
Brian, I was on this Appian Way signal. I noticed that since the last status report that the construction was pushed off into the spring of '24, with the design being still slated to be completed this year. Just wondering, if it seems like there's a pretty significant need there. Is there any way that it could be done in '23?
I'm not sure on why that was pushed. Chris?
Thanks, Brian. I'll clarify. Commissioner Dodson, the construction funding for this particular project was requested as part of a congressionally designated spending through essentially an earmark. That has to be appropriated by Congress and run through the Federal Highway Administration and LPA program through NDOT. So we were seeking construction funding only, and until that money is more or less secured, which we anticipate to be later in '23 or early '24, that's why the schedule's been set up for summer of 2024, is because that's when we think we'll have the federal funding to actually build this project secured and under agreement.
And Chris, on that one, are you still considering extending Appian Way on the east side as part of this, or we're just designing for it at this point?
Our design will not preclude the extension of Appian Way to the east.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you so very much. Okay, we're now going to move on to our final public comment. Is there anybody come on up? Well, hello. See if I know where. Hello. I love it.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Clark. I'm a local bicyclist and citizen activist. So I wanted to just ask, first of all, I see such really good work on what is getting accomplished in Carson City, so kudos. The South Carson Street, Complete Street projects is just beautiful, and the city is looking magnificent, and I'm just so proud of the work the city has done. One question I had, and I'm not sure if this work has already been done, but the Roop Street project, is that going to include any sidewalks, improvement on Roop Street? That was in the 2021, or the plan for 2020, I guess. And the reason I ask is when you ride your bicycle on Fifth Street, on Roop, going north, you cannot ride your bicycle on Roop Street north, actually. You have to get off and get on the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is not there. So my comment is, if the street needs to be widened as part of that rehab, and/or changed, I think that cyclists and pedestrians should be considered. That's one comment. Another comment is, I'm very excited about the DMV multi-use path project. It might seem small to other people, but for folks who are in that area, you can find that there are many tourists in that area on bicycles, and that there are people that would try to use that as a transportation route if it was available. So kudos to getting that project done. And of course, the freeway multi-use path to Edmonds. You know, we had a former commissioner who worked very hard to get some of those things done. So let's hope that Pete Livermore's, our memory of Pete Livermore is bright and shiny, and we get that done. And he would be very happy if we could complete that project.
It would be. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I have any other public comment? Nope. See none. Then thank you all for a very good meeting. We're adjourned at 5:48-ish, whatever her little clock will tell her. Thank you so much, everyone, for a good meeting.